It is my absolute honor to welcome you to tonight's Brooklyn Talks in conjunction with our special exhibition, Solid Gold. Organized on the occasion of the museum's 200th anniversary, Solid Gold showcases more than 500 works of art, with a section entirely devoted to the fashion world's enthusiastic embrace of gold. We are honored to hear from Anna Sui, whose incredible designs are featured in the exhibition. Anna Sui's celebrated brand spans ready-to-wear, accessories, cosmetics, and fragrances. In this evening's talk, she will discuss gold's many symbolic valences within her practice and the role it has in her work as both a color and a material. Additionally, she'll give us a behind-the-scenes look into the journey of building her independent, female-run company, including her commitment to centering her business in New York City's garment district for the past 40 years. Anna is joined in conversation by Matthew Yokobosky, Senior Curator of Fashion and Material Culture here at the Brooklyn Museum. Without further ado, please help me in giving a warm Brooklyn welcome to Anna Sui and Matthew Yokobosky.
Hello.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for coming.
So it's spring. Yes, happy spring. Are you superstitious about certain seasons or times of the year?
Not really, no, I don't think so. What are you?
No, I was just thinking about, do you insist...
Oh, you fall in love in the spring?
Fall in love in the spring. Spring is always good. But sometimes people like to have their fashion shows on a Monday, or they like to wait until there's a full moon, or that sort of thing. So we're going to go through some images here. So you grew up in Detroit, and the 17 magazine was kind of your window on the world.
It was, and some of these are my favorite issues that you see up there. I think that my favorite issue was the August issues, and it was back to school. And you see that Twiggy was in the horizon, and these were like some of the first pictures that I saw of Twiggy. So this kind of formulated all my ideas about what was stylish and fashionable and what I aspired to.
Mm-hmm. And these silhouettes that we see here, these skirt and jacket, they're kind of hallmarks of a lot of your collections.
I think so. And if you look at my first collection, it's pretty much this look. And there was houndstooth, there was red, black, bright yellow, lots of pleated skirts, little blazer jackets. So, and I think in my last collection, there was blazers and a pleated skirt too, but in shades of brown.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the fabrics that you had in the beginning were American-made fabrics. Did your sourcing in America?
When I started doing fashion shows, most of the fabrics, I'd say almost 99% of the fabrics were American-made, and especially the woolen mills in New England. Cotton came from the South, like all the denims, and it was so much easier to work because you didn't have to commit to these huge quantities. You didn't have these long lead times. A lot of the mills stocked their yarns, so you would just go through and pick out colors, or they would dye them for you. And the process changed through the 90s, where everything became imported, and suddenly we were dealing with buying from Italy or China or Japan or Turkey, but they weren't as easy to work with. The quantities were bigger. It was challenging.
So you also had to do bigger runs of certain designs then, because you were investing in bigger quantities of fabric.
Yeah. I mean, actually, when I started, I bought fabrics that were already existing. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a name for that now. What is it? Yeah. So that's how I started. I bought a lot of dead stock. But Manhattan was incredible because we had a city filled with hoarders that kept fabrics since the 30s, and I found the most incredible prints from the 60s and denims and just things that were left over, and my quantities were small enough that I could just buy the existing yardage.
Mm-hmm. And you were also inspired a lot by music, not necessarily sounds you heard in Detroit, but world music, London, New York, punk, different things.
Yeah, so again, like 17 also featured all the British bands that were coming over. They modeled with some of the models in the issues. And Detroit also had, like, they were part of the circuit, so you would see every band coming through. The first concert that I went to was the Monkees. But then I think the next one was Led Zeppelin.
Oh, okay. But here we have Marianne Faithfull and Anita Pallenberg, two, I think, icons who were very inspiring for you.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I looked at a lot of fashion magazines, and sometimes they would have articles about the bands, but sometimes you'd get a glimpse of the girlfriends. And to me, that was so fascinating to see what they were wearing, to see their hairstyles, their makeup. And then once in a while, you would even find like an article about them or in the newspaper. Mm-hmm. And so these women became my idols, and I was lucky enough to be friends with them later in life.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Even after Marianne changed direction and musical styles, it was still cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So amazing.
And then we have Iggy, we have Bowie, who were groundbreaking at the time. What attracted you to them?
I mean, just look at them. It's like, Iggy played in Detroit, and some of my earlier concerts were also like going to see Iggy in the park. And my older brother Bob would drive me to the park, and they had these outdoor concerts, and it would be Iggy, Alice Cooper, and MC5. So they were my favorite bands at that moment. Mm-hmm. And then when I first came to New York, David Bowie played, and that was a sight to behold.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I know you came to see the David Bowie retrospective when we had it here.
I did. Yeah.
Were there clothes in that exhibition that you went, oh my God, this is here?
Well, yeah. And like the Kansai stuff was just incredible. And I think that, just to be able to see that in person instead of just photographs or, and then, yeah, it was because I think when you see clothes and photographs, you get one sense, but when you see them actually in person, then you get a whole sense of the person themselves, how tall they were, how slim they were, all those things, which is a little hard to judge in a photo.
It is, I always find that with exhibitions when people go like, oh, they're smaller than I thought, or oh, they're taller than I thought.
Right.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I thought it was interesting too when we were going through the images before that you actually knew so many details about David's shoes in this photograph.
Oh yeah. So there was a place, Paradise Shoes, that was on Bowery, and he actually got those. The shoes that he's wearing, they're casted resin, and there's a palm tree on the back, and then they were satin, and they were amazing. Yeah.
We had a pair of shoes that Kansai had designed in the show, and we were walking through, and he was showing me all these details, which you couldn't see because they were like, he had did drawings on the inside of the soles, and it really great. Your career in the 80s, you were doing a lot of styling, and then you had, and here's an example of your styling on the cover of Italian Vogue. You have a great story about Madonna wearing your clothes.
So the picture of her in the black dress, my first time going to the shows in Paris, I went with Stephen Meisel, and we the first show that we went to, we stopped at the Ritz to pick up Madonna. And in her hotel room, it was filled with shopping bags and racks of clothes from every French designer. And I was like so jealous, like everybody's like throwing their things at her to wear. It's like, oh my God, it's like a dream. And then she was late. She came running out with her coat. We ran into the car, got to the Gautier show, and when she took off her coat, she said, "Anna, I have a surprise for you." And she was wearing my dress, that black baby doll.
Which is great. And you continue to work with her, and she wore your clothes the following year when there was a big spread around the launch of her sex book.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because she was working a lot with Stephen then.
Yeah.
And we actually, I also went to the photo shoot where Stephen was photographing her. There's that famous picture of her in bed and the mirrors on top. And then we did her in the center picture with Dolce & Gabbana, that like leotard. And then the picture on the right with the purple shirt, she wore a lot of my clothes. It was for Vogue. And she was on the cover of Vogue, and she had quite a few pages.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. But it was really great publicity for you in your early part of your career to have someone of her notoriety wearing your clothes. It was a big...
Well, especially that when she came out wearing my baby doll dress, because when we went back to New York, Stephen said, "Okay, now it's your turn. You have to do a show." And I was like, how am I going to do a show? Like, how can I compete with what I just saw? And then the fact that she was wearing my dress gave me that little boost that I thought, well, maybe I could do this.
Oh, well. Yeah, absolutely. Well, your first show, you had incredible models. You had Linda, you had Naomi. I mean, how extraordinary to have your first big fashion show with the models of the time.
Well, actually, I knew them socially because I was friends with Stephen, and he kind of made the whole supermodel phenomena. But we would hang out, like they would come over to my apartment, we'd have birthday parties or go out to dinner. So I knew them socially. So for my first show, Linda, Naomi, and Christy helped me get all the other models.
Mm-hmm. How important is casting for your shows?
I mean, that's, I think, sets the tone for what you're trying to get across for the show. And, you know, Stephen has always helped me throughout all these years. And usually my casting are his new discoveries, his new favorites.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But when you're designing a collection and you're inspired by a particular, you know, celebrity or person, do you envision specific models being a part of that particular presentation?
Sometimes, yeah. And, you know, I would discuss the collections a lot with Stephen. And, in fact, Michelle Hicks, who became one of my favorite models, he had seen my inspiration board, and I had these sisters, the Ormsby-Gore sisters, up on the wall. And then he called me and he said, "I'm going to send over an Ormsby-Gore girl." And it was Michelle Hicks.
Wow.
And she had the same kind of haircut like they had. And, and she eventually did, like, I don't know, quite a few of my shows.
Mm-hmm. But Linda, Naomi, Christy, they were in a lot of your shows also.
They were, yeah. And Christy became exclusive at Calvin after a while.
Yes, yes.
But Linda and Naomi, I think Naomi did more than any other model. And Linda eventually moved to Paris, so then she wasn't in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But through those years when she was here.
Yeah. But you still were rock and roll. And we have here on the right side Mick Jagger wearing your clothes. I mean, that must have been like, you know, somebody that you had admired in the 60s,
completely.
you know, and now here he is.
Well, I hadn't done men's clothes, but then we introduced it, I think, in spring '93, and Mick was hosting Saturday Night Live, and his stylist called, and they borrowed the clothes, and he ended up wearing it for his Saturday Night Live. And then he had seen this vest, which I made out of old Afghani fabric, that was all like mirrored and embroidered, and he bought that one too.
Wow. I think it's so interesting, that you always have this kind of rock and roll sensibility about the clothes. I remember talking to Norma Kamali, and she talked about how important it was, when Robert Plant would come in. And it wasn't that she was making men's clothes, but they were so attracted to the fabrics and the designs that they would wear them. No one was questioning about whether they were wearing men's clothes or women's clothes.
Yeah, because I loved glam rock. I loved the New York Dolls, and the New York Dolls wore a lot of Norma's clothes too. And every time I did a collection, I would always, in the back of my mind, think, oh, is this cool enough for Keith and Anita? It's like I always kind of weigh it out. And then once I started doing men's clothes, a lot of rock guys came to me. I think my second customer was the guy, Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Fashion icon, Nick Rhodes. Your first store on Green Street, I remember when your first men's line came out, I was like a beeline to go see it. Your first store was very black, like lacquered black. It felt Victorian,
Well, when I started getting into vintage, I was still at home and in Detroit, and I went to the Salvation Army, and I found this incredible vanity that had this beautiful beveled mirror on it that kind of swung a little bit, and little drawers on the side. But it looked like it had been in a fire. It was white with all this smudgy stuff on it. So I brought it home, and my mother was horrified. And I ended up painting it shiny black lacquer. And I thought, now it looks Victorian. So when I opened my first store, I didn't have a lot of money. So I thought, I'm going to do the same thing for decorating my store. So I had my favorite vendor at the flea market that was on 26th Street and 6th Avenue. And she would find me these kind of Rococo pieces, and then we would just paint them black lacquer, and it made it all look like it belonged together.
Yeah. It kind of makes it all homogeneous, but it has still a lot of style with the curves and all the things. Flea markets. Do you still spend a lot of time at flea markets?
When I go to foreign cities, I do. Yeah, I love Portobello. I don't go so much in New York anymore because when I go there, I get sad that it's not as incredible as it was. And on the way here, I was talking to the ladies from my office and telling them you wouldn't believe what the flea market was like. I think a lot of you in the audience maybe experienced it. It was just extraordinary, and you wouldn't know what to buy first. And it would be like that every weekend. Yeah.
I thought when I was working on the Solid Gold exhibition, and thank you for wearing gold tonight. I was talking to P.C. Chandra. We were on Fifth Avenue, and we were chatting, and I was telling him about what I was working on, and he told me about this lecture that you'd given at FIT where you were trying to tell students, don't rely on the computer, go out and look at things, because the computer's just giving you what it thinks you want.
And it's flat.
Yeah.
And I think that you learn so much by touching and feeling the fabrics, seeing the dimension of it, understanding the weight of the fabric and what the construction is. And you can't see that in a flat picture.
Did you, as a part of your learning experience about making clothes, did you take a lot of clothes apart?
I never had the heart to take it apart. I love clothes so much. It used to make me crazy when people would chop the sleeves off, or even chopping the dress shorter. Maybe I would bring the hem up rather than chopping it, because I just didn't want to destroy the original object.
Oh.
But I do study how things are made, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking again to Norma about making jeans, and she was in the late 70s, she was going to design Studio 54 jeans, and because that was the designer jean moment. And she talked about, going and seeing Levi and Wrangler and taking them all apart to see about like why they were working and how to get that nice curve on the behind.
Yeah, but she's such a technician. She's incredible, a great pattern maker.
But you work with great pattern makers.
I do.
Yeah. In your studio. Okay. So this was an aesthetic. It just kind of was such a moment, MTV had already been out for 10 years, and now suddenly we're having this new music moment coming out of Seattle. What attracted you to that initially?
Well, I think it was like a reaction against all the big hair bands that came out of LA, the heavy metal bands, and a lot of them looked almost manufactured. And here was like a real, genuine movement. And I think it coincided with like a lot of the new designers in New York, where it was a total reaction against, again, the big shoulders, the Ivana Trump sort of look. And I think that a whole new generation kind of related to all this. And it was a mixture of vintage and a little bit of army surplus, and I think it just was something that you could do it yourself or go out and buy it now.
But a lot of it was about, I know you just said you don't like to take clothes apart, but a lot of those looks relied on deconstruction.
True.
Yeah.
I mean,
designed to look deconstructed, but a lot of the initial ones were deconstructions.
Yeah, I mean, some of the fabrics I would take, well, actually, like the velvet, I went to the place that we ordered velvet from, Plitt Siegel, and Julie Siegel was probably like in his 80s at that point, and I said, how come the velvet doesn't look like that kind of velvet that you see in the flea markets? It's all mushy and kind of wrinkled, and he's like, oh, I could do that for you, and so he washed it, and it became a new thing for him. Like he did this like whole washed velvet thing, and that became his best-selling fabric for a while. But he thought people wanted it very neat and clean, and whereas I wanted it very rumpled.
And were there other techniques that you used to get this deconstructed look?
Yeah, I would launder things. I would over-dye them. I think on my third collection, a lot of the corduroys we over-dyed so they looked more antique, and they were more rumpled again. And then I would take brocades and wash them in my washing machine so that it didn't look so crisp, because brocade's always very crisp.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have a preference for working with a natural fabric versus more kind of tech fabrics that we have today?
I guess I'm better at natural fabrics, but I do appreciate the technology because it gives you that little stretch, or it wrinkle-free, or like those kind of things.
I mean, I find like with suits, like if I have a wool suit and it has like a 3% rayon or 3% something, and it wears better. Just that little change.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's an improvement.
The grunge continued for the next spring-summer season, but this was edgier, I would say. I mean, it harked back a little bit more to those ambiguous early 70s days, but in a new form.
Yeah, that's Michelle Hicks in the white dress, and that was her first show. But yeah, there was a lot of the bands like Kurt Cobain and Smashing Pumpkins, like they were wearing dresses. They were wearing these 30s dresses in their music videos or over their jeans with a t-shirt underneath it. And I just thought that was so cool. And so when I was working on this show, I layered these like little baby doll dresses over long underwear for the guys.
And also, like a lot of those early baby doll dresses, I mean, they weren't like Balenciaga baby doll dresses from '57, which were more like a trapeze. They were a little bit more negligee-y, I would say. Which, this was also the time where we saw a lot of those kind of negligee dresses, like referencing the 20s and 30s.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's what we were buying at flea markets. We were buying those 30s, like with the peach color satin with the antique lace on it, and wearing them just as dresses. And I wanted, again, that same rumpled feeling. And then also, like all these little girl dresses, they reminded me of the Little Rascals. So I looked at the Little Rascals and Miss Crabtree, and I loved how she always looked. So they were like the Miss Crabtree dresses.
Miss Crabtree dresses. And also ruffles. I mean, ruffles always seem to be a part of that look. Was that something that you felt like came out of that like late 60s, early 70s period?
Yeah, and then it's also kind of adding in that Victorian feeling, because I always loved all those kind of Victorian like camisole dresses, or taking the bodice of the Victorian dress and wearing it as top. So it was introducing that into different fabrics.
And also more sheer, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah.
I also have on here your playlist for this show. Do you find that when you're working on a collection that you have like maybe a particular album, or we have albums now, but they're not like it used to be.
I had albums.
Yeah. Do you still have albums? Do you have a turntable?
I do. I don't, but I did have albums. Yes.
You had albums. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back when you were going to see the Monkees, you were buying their album. Were you always vinyl, or did you like do cassette or 8-track?
Cassettes,
mixtapes,
and CDs, and yeah. I mean, each evolution I went along with. Yeah.
But so the soundtrack, maybe that you were listening to while you were designing, does that become the soundtrack for the actual runway presentation?
Sometimes. Sometimes it was just what helps me get into the mood. But this period was very unique because it was all current music, because there were so many exciting new bands, and every few months there was another new band, another kind of different wave of it. In the past, like when I was working on the 60s collections, I was probably listening to 60s music. When I was working on the when I did my collection that was inspired by like the Belle Epoque, I was listening to music from that period. And like I always worked with Frederic Sanchez, and he, being French, knew all those women that sang like for Toulouse-Lautrec in those dance halls. So he sent me over a lot of that music. So it helps create the mood.
Do you play music in your studio while you're working on the collection? It's just kind of like a total experience? I do,
especially on Saturdays and Sundays if I'm working by myself and sketching. Like I have that on. And like in the last collection, about the heiresses, and I was listening to, I heard that Doris Duke's favorite song was I Love the Way You're Breaking My Heart by Peggy Lee. And I never listened to Peggy Lee before. So I listened to all of her music. And it's just like I like getting into the mood of like what I'm trying to evoke.
Peggy Lee has a lot of mood. If you haven't listened to Peggy Lee, you should listen to Sugar and Spice, which is a great album. I actually saw Peggy Lee at the Ballroom when I first moved to New York. She had on like round rhinestone glasses, and with her white like hair, it was kind of, she was amazing. I saw Eartha Kitt there too. This show also, your models were very diverse. You had Eve and you had Jenny Shimizu, who had that androgynous kind of Annie Lennox, Grace Jones kind of feel to them. were you just dressing them in women's clothes for that runway, or were you mixing it up, men's clothes on women also?
Well, if you see Jenny, she's wearing like a little baby doll dress and
At
carrying a
one
little
point,
handbag.
yes.
Yeah. And she felt so awkward, but I love that awkwardness about her because she dressed like a guy. And with Ev, she was kind of like so kind of mechanical. You see her do that on the runway. So I thought it was funny to put her in that metallic outfit.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to go to, okay. So this is a more extreme look. So here you have a guy who has like facial hair and he's wearing this lingerie. I mean, how did that come about?
There was this great concert in San Francisco that the Beastie Boys organized. And I went out there with, and like every band of that moment was playing there. And we were all staying in the same hotel. And I remember coming down in the elevator and the doors opened and I went, oh, Dave Navarro. And he went, oh, Anna Sui. And we both ran different directions. And I thought, oh, that was dumb. So that night there was a big party in the Tiki Lounge at the Fairmount. And it was so incredible to see because all those guys in the band were all breakdancing on the dance floor. And then I saw Dave across the room, and then I kind of like, hi, and so then we started talking, and I said, oh, would you ever want to do my runway show? And he said, well, if there's lingerie involved. So that's how that happened.
But when he said lingerie, you didn't think like men's sheer socks or a jockstrap?
Obviously not.
No. Fun. So you in reading, a lot of your interviews and things before tonight, you do talk a lot about the joy of wearing clothes, the fun of wearing clothes, that that clothes should be something that you can change, that not something that you have to be wedded to one look. You can experiment. You can be an heiress one day. You can be a grunge rocker another.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy wearing clothes. I enjoy dressing up. And to me, that's the fun of fashion. I was just telling somebody over the weekend, when I was still working on 7th Avenue, I remember getting like this Kenzo outfit that was kind of big, oversized, and I wore it with cowboy boots, and I had just gotten a perm, and my hair was kind of like this, and I was wearing all these colors on my face, and I got in the elevator of the office building, and somebody started whistling "Send in the Clowns." Oh. Oh. So, I mean, it never bothered me.
Oh. I mean, when you're into clothes, you want to wear clothes. You
well,
do.
I thought I was it.
No, you do. And if you had been in a nightclub, like everyone would be like, oh, yeah. But it's tricky wearing like what you want to wear just out in the regular public. Mm-hmm.
But that's the point. Because maybe you like that shock value or
yes.
that attention, so I don't know.
But you have to have a little bit of, you have to have a little good sense of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or be developing one. Yeah. There we go. So you've also had amazing collaborations over the years, long-running collaborations, licensing. How important has kind of global business culture been for you?
Well, I think I was in the right place at the right time because when Bryant Park happened and kind of the whole New York fashion scene became a global, there was global attention. We had all the international press here and international stores. And suddenly we had so many buyers from Japan, from Europe. And at that same moment, I got approached by a Japanese company, Isetan, and got a deal with them. And along with it came 12 licenses, and one of them was cosmetics. But then at the same moment, I got approached by a German company for fragrance, and that was Wella. And so my idea was, well, why don't they cross-distribute? But they didn't. They said, that's unorthodox. We don't do that. But to me, that was the beginning of globalization. Like, everybody started doing that.
Mm. And did you find that specific markets wanted specific things? You know, for example, if you go to Anna's website, which is fabulous, but way at the bottom there's a tab that says Japanese website. And you go to the Japanese website, and I was surprised, for example, that you have aprons. You have like a whole section. So you don't have an apron section on your American website.
No, but it's a big product in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have dog clothes, children's wear.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's big there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're designing aprons because it's a market. You know, are you looking back at a time, for example, in America where women wore aprons, like in the 1950s, or?
Yeah, because part of my look back then with the perm and the bigger clothes, I put aprons over things. So it was very Raggedy Ann, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
So I always loved aprons, and I used to collect them at the flea market.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. What about color choices for makeup? I mean, do you find that you sell one particular color more in one country than another, or how are you forecasting color choices?
Well, of course, the makeup was originally geared for the Japanese market, but then we tweaked it some, and so now it's pretty international.
Mm-hmm.
But like the best-selling color is my number 400 red, and we've always done that throughout, as long as we've done lipsticks.
Mm-hmm.
And my new favorite is this green nail polish. So I've been wearing this for a couple of years now.
Oh, okay. Now, a green nail polish, it's perfect segue. Zandra, at one point she had green hair before she landed on pink. But these are some of the women that came before you that were successful in having fashion businesses. You know, a lot of times today we read about different fashion houses. They've hired a creative director, but you have your own company. How has your relationship been with these other iconic women?
Yeah, I'm so lucky that I've met them all, and they're all close friends now. My first apartment was on the same block as Norma Kamali's boutique, and so I met her back then when I was still at Parsons.
57th.
53rd.
53rd, yeah.
And then Zandra, I met because I saw her at a fashion show, and I don't think that they knew who she was, and I ran over there and said, you have to give her a front row seat. So, and then I invited her to my show.
Mm-hmm.
And Barbara Hulanicki, I met her in Cornwall. I used to go to this literary festival, and she would go every summer as well. And we actually shared a bathroom. So
Wow. It's amazing. But it's good to have someone that you could have a conversation with about the business.
yeah, it's amazing, and they're all so great. Like they're so inspirational.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're celebrating Solid Gold here at the museum. Thank you for being a part of this exhibition. It was very interesting for me when I was laying out the show, all the emails that we were sending back and forth, talking about which ensembles we would have in the Gold exhibition. I thought it was amazing one day when you said that, you know, after the runway show, we take the outfit and we put it in a bag. I was like, oh my God, not that many people are that organized.
I just thought that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So because we were on to the next thing, and so,
What I love too about working on the installation is that it allowed me to create other conversations. And for example, the looks on the left and the right, they both had jackets that had hoods, and when you showed them on the runway, the hoods were down. But when I was thinking about including it with this Sargent painting of the woman with the veil, I loved the idea of having the hood up, so that it created a new conversation with your clothes. I'm going to show the runway. So this is, we picked pieces from two different
Yes.
collections. This is one you did based on a art documentary, Painter's Painting.
Yeah, I was so inspired by it, watching it, because I wasn't familiar with the artists really, but I loved how the people looked at the gallery, and they were so elegant. And you had like the Ethel Skull, who was wearing Courrèges, and you had Louise Nevelson, an artist, and she was wearing Skazi. And I just thought, like, what happened? Like now, when you go to an art gallery now, it's so casual.
Yes.
And here it was just kind of like such an elegant event. So I wanted to capture that. And so the collection was a combination of wealthy patron, rich artist, starting artists, student artists, so I kind of addressed all those people that would be at a gallery show. And that's how we did the the styling for the runway.
Mm-hmm. I think the point that you brought up about how people go to events looking in a different mode today is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So you were making a collection for today, but it was based on a way of dressing that we don't quite do today.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel that you were wanting to present more formal clothes so that people could think about dressing more formal?
Well, I think I want to show that possibility that you can dress like this. You don't have to just wear casual clothes.
Because even when you think about there were times where you'd have to wear a suit to go to the movies, or you have to
Or to fly on an airplane.
Yeah, to fly on an airplane, absolutely. You also, we drew from this collection, which I adore, based on Charles and Ray Eames, who were also filmmakers, but we best know them for their design work.
But I watched the documentary about them, and because they were best friends with Alexander Gerard, who I loved, and I didn't know this relationship, and they all worked together in Michigan. And when I thought about it, my attraction to all their furniture was that was the furniture that I grew up with. Like, it was everywhere.
Oh.
Knoll Furniture was Michigan. And so I really, really did a deep dive. And so for the clothes, I thought, well, I would love to do some embroideries that had furniture. So I have this armoire wardrobe cabinet, and I was talking to the embroiderer. I used to work with this company, Weber and Dobrik, and they were based in New Jersey. And the daughter inherited the business, and I would do a sketch for her, and she would take it to her person that did the actual sketch for the Schiffley machine, and he would do a counter sketch. And that's how you can see on the bottom of that black dress, it's these wardrobes that go all the way around the dress, wardrobe cabinets. And then the other dress, we actually beaded in India. And I loved the Warhol shoe drawings that had the Dresden paper. So I found vintage Dresden paper and brought it to Italy, and we made all these little molds, and we cut out leather shapes, and so the boots are all appliqued with kind of Dresden paper and borders of Dresden paper. And then we simulated the same thing on the herringbone on the dress, and so it looks like it's all kind of Dresden papered also.
Wow. Well, everybody can look at that more closely when they go up to the galleries. I loved also that you included chain. We have a big chain store in the Gold Show, and watches. I mean, everyone, when you think about things gold, there was a time where we always thought about the gold watch. You're going to retire. I actually read recently that if you retired from Lego, they actually, for a time, gave you a gold Lego.
Oh, wow. Oh, and then the necklace also, Erickson Beeman, who I worked with all these years for the fashion shows, they did like my couch. And they made that like, it's kind of like a Victorian-shaped couch. She's wearing it with the black dress. And that necklace is all the same shape as my couch.
No. But but using armoires is kind of a motif on clothing. It's unusual, But but for you, was that like having like a lobster embroidery, or it? I love it,
Yeah, I love the shape of the armoire. I mean, I have an armoire that shape.
Okay.
And we had actually used it kind of as a logo sort of thing. We made a label that way as well. So it's really about the shape of it. And
Sure.
I think that rococo sort of shape.
Mm-hmm. And did furniture shapes come into the design of the actual jumpers and clothes in the collection?
No, they were
No.
the embellishments.
Just the embellishment.
But I do love that Three Stooges episode where they were carpenters, but they became fashion designers.
Yes.
And they used the chest of drawers as like the panier of the dress. And
It's so great. It's so Magritte. Yeah. And this, I mean, I love how much time you spend watching movies, especially documentaries. This collection was based on Busby Berkeley, which, if you haven't seen Dames or those sorts of films, please add them to your Netflix. But there's so much surrealism in these collections, and mirroring, and Freudian symbolism,
yeah, this was, I was home visiting in Michigan, and my dad loves Turner classic movies. And I was stumped for what to do for the fashion show, and just praying that something would like strike me. And then we started watching this movie with the Busby Berkeley choreography, and I thought, yes, this is it. And I love the rehearsal clothes too. So you can see that like the tap shorts are very much like the rehearsal clothes. And then I found these great wigs, and Garen made this great hairstyle for me, and we did them in all different colors.
Wow. Speaking of the tap shorts, how do you feel about things today, like clothes that trend like bloomers? Do you feel like you have to design bloomers today, or did you feel like you had to design jorts, or these trends that happen? And in 2017, you had your retrospective, which went all over the world. How was it for you to kind of be looking at everything all together at once?
Well, actually, we had never looked back. As you said, after the show, after the sales, we just packed it up and put it in a box. And I really never looked at anything again. And when the Fashion and Textile Museum approached me to do a show, Dennis Northrup came up with this concept of like these icons of Anna Sui design, and he grouped it together, and we started selecting clothes from that fall into these like schoolgirl or androgyny, rock, grunge, or like so. Mm-hmm. When we took out all the clothes, actually we hadn't assembled it all and shipped it all to London. And so my assistant Thomas went over before me, like 2 weeks before, and he called me and he said, "Anna, you cannot believe what this looks like." And he was crying because he had been there through all the shows, and to see it all again, reconstructed. And So it's very moving for me, and I think that it's like such an incredible opportunity to be able to see your work like that.
Mm-hmm. Did after seeing kind of an overview, a retrospective of your work, did it inspire specific themes to come next for your collections?
Well, what was interesting when we did the show in New York at MAD, opening ceremony asked, could I recreate 10 outfits? So they commissioned that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was hard because all those mills were gone. And so we had to figure out how to refabricate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a year or two later, Marc Jacobs decided he wanted to reproduce his grunge collection because it never got manufactured. And he chose 10 styles from my grunge collection, and we reproduced those for his store.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of the start of like revisiting and finding the old patterns. And then suddenly there was all this interest in the 90s, and the store Essence asked us if we would do some styles from previous collections as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just there's just been all this interest in that period.
Mm-hmm. It's been interesting, that kind of design, because like I remember when Margiela did the collaboration with H&M, they went back and they were doing re-editions.
Mm-hmm.
And do you find that, as the years go by, do you find that you always have to have like a short sweater, or you always have to have a particular kind of skirt? Because people, like, when they go to buy Anna Sui, they're expecting particular pieces.
Sometimes, but I mean, I think my main objective every collection is to make that collection, especially for the runway, when you have to think of all the elements that need to be done. I don't think I've really ever analyzed it the way a real designer should. I mean, like put it together logically. Like mine is more instinctively, and maybe I need to get a little more logical again, but I don't know.
No, but back in the couture time, if you were doing a collection, you'd go like, okay, these are dresses for lunch, these are coats for going to tea in the afternoon. I mean, they would be all based on a particular time of day and specific activity, which our lives aren't governed by in these times, so it's a lot more fluid.
Yeah, but when you're a madcap heiress, you can do anything.
Oh, that's true. COVID happened. Suddenly everyone was kind of a little bit on freeze. Thank you so much. This is a picture. Anne came to see our Studio 54 show during that time. The garment district was quiet. I mean, all of New York was quiet. How did that affect you artistically and business-wise?
I mean, it was just, it kind of changed everything. I think it changed all our lives, and kind of all our systems have changed. It's all, we had to rethink and reinvent, and suddenly everything was e-commerce only. So we had to relearn that too. So it's been challenging and a learning process, but also exciting in a lot of ways too, because it brought us to the next level and the next step of what we need to do.
But do you feel like now, a couple years later, do you feel that people want to be back in the store touching the fabrics again?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's what I'm more familiar with. So I think that we're going to find a balance. But I think we've gone a little farther now with e-commerce and doing it all virtually. So it's never going to be exactly the same that it was. Yeah.
You've mentioned now a couple of times your recent collection, Madcap Eras. It is gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you.
It's really a beautiful collection.
Thank you.
Who were some of the heiresses that were inspiring for this collection?
Up on my wall, I had Doris Duke, Barbara Hutton, and Peggy Guggenheim. And so like the Fortuny-ish pleat dress was a homage to Peggy Guggenheim's Fortuny dress. The leopard was from Bringing Up Baby.
Yes.
So I had to get leopard in there somehow, so.
Do you find that you have particular patterns you go to? I mean, I think in going through your collections, I was surprised you often have a floral, you know, which not every designer does. You don't have as many solids in your collections.
No, I guess I love prints, and that was always like kind of the basis for my collection for many, many years. I know that now, lately, it's been very, very quiet and more solids and minimal, but I guess this is my idea of minimal.
That's good. I just went to see Smash the other week, and at the end of Smash, which if you haven't got tickets, you should get tickets. At the end of it, one of the characters says, Harold Prince always said the day after your opening, you have to start on your next show. Do you find that you're already thinking about your next show after Madcap Heiress went up?
Totally, because we have to design on schedule. We don't have a choice. And I think like the crazy thing about designing fashion is the first thing you do are the shoes. And you have to kind of already have some sort of concept in your mind what the proportion is, what the lengths are, so that you can work on the shoes.
And the shoes
They take the longest, yeah.
Like, so 6 months at least. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so what shoes should we be thinking of in 6 months? I think we're going to take some questions from the audience now. Yeah. I think we have microphones set up on the side. Oh, okay. Hi, Alva.
We want to capture you we're filming tonight though, so I'm going to bring the microphone to you. But if you can walk to the microphones, there's one in each aisle.
So I just want to be clear. You have saved every single collection, every piece from every collection? Oh, okay.
Talk in the microphone.
Sorry, but as much, well, if she doesn't need a microphone. No, it was just not a conscious effort. And, you know, I now I kind of regret, like, giving things away because I wished I had them. But we have a lot of it, yeah. Yeah.
So when you were getting ready for the world of Anna Sui...
No, I never imagined that.
Yeah. You know, when I first saw the title, The World of Anna Sui, I wondered if it was a reference to the film, The World of Susie Wong. But
I didn't know because Dennis Northrup came up with that title, so I'm not sure. I have to ask him.
Yeah.
Barbara, do you know? Did that ever come up? Yeah.
No. Immersive.
Hi, I have a question.
Hi.
I'm in the corner. My name is Dawn Glover. I'm a fashion designer. I work on Scotch and Soda right now, but I studied at Parsons Paris and went to Spelman College before that. I wanted to know if your life was like a sliding door. There's a Gwyneth Paltrow movie that way. If you weren't Anna Sui, the designer, is there another path that you might have taken if it wasn't this one?
I think that I was unusual because since I was like 4 or 5, I decided that this is what I was going to do. But I had to figure out how to do it. You know, I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, and back then we didn't have as much information, so I had to seek it out. And so that's like fashion magazines were kind of my path. And I think that if I didn't have that impossible dream, I think just being so focused got me through everything because, like, I didn't really know what the pitfalls would be. I just was focused on becoming a fashion designer. And so I heard about 2 young women that went to Parsons, and when they graduated, they were given a boutique in Paris by Elizabeth Taylor. So I thought, oh, I have to go to Parsons. And then
I didn't get that.
so I mean, but that's how my brain worked. Like I thought, okay, I have to go to Parsons. So I think that if I didn't have that focus like that, I don't know, I would have maybe felt that it wasn't possible, but in my mind it was.
The fashion magazines that you were looking at the time, 17, they were all color at that point, but television was black and white. And being in New York, we're often wearing a lot of black and white. But the color for you really came from that magazine color.
I think so, and then later art. Like a lot of times I have art up on my inspiration wall, or I'll see a movie and then take pictures of stills from the movie. So it's always trying to evoke that excitement that I have, and to capture it and show it in the clothes.
After you do a collection, do you take the mood board away and start blank?
No, it's the hardest thing to put it away. I still have mine up from Madcap Eris, and I look at it every day and think, okay, today I have to take it down, but I still haven't.
Yeah. Are you adding to it?
No.
No. We have another question.
Hello, my name is Odalis, and one of the things that I love about your brand and your essence as a designer is that you're always introducing new and exciting ideas, but you're still able to stay very true to your name and your brand. What are some of the questions that you ask yourself when you're editing down your ideas to put together a collection in order to achieve that balance?
I don't know. It's just I love being inspired and excited about something. I love going to exhibitions. I love seeing movies. I love discovering something new, and I want to share that. So I think it goes through my brain. So I think that I think because it goes through that way that it channels with my signature. And maybe because I kind of always sort of like the same sort of clothes. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Do you see your collections as being something that you can, that you build on? That someone bought a skirt in one collection, they bought a blouse in another collection. Do you find that your seasons can be mixed and coalesce together?
Yeah, because that's how I dress. I'll go dig in the back of my closet and find this shirt. It's really how I dress because it's the mood that I want to be in, and it's the color I'm looking for. And I have that from 10 years ago, and so I'll dig it out and wear it.
Yeah. Wow. We all want to have an Anna Sui closet. Any other? Oh, we have one more. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Stephen. I have a family textile company, MJ Con on 27th Street. I'm just interested in, future collections. Do you still use dead stock in your, future works?
I do. I mean, if there's enough for it for the orders, that's the thing. Because it's kind of hard to reproduce something. I don't know what kind of stock you have, but yeah. Maybe I should come visit.
Yeah, please come by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Over here, yes.
Hi, my name's Emily Galati, and I saw online your apartment, which is amazing, by the way. And what has created your Art Deco style? What has made it seem like every item you have is almost blended into Art Deco?
Well, when I did my apartment, I looked at a lot of my design icons, and Tony Duquette was a big influence, and Rose Cummings was a big influence. And I put together these folders all the time, kind of the same way I do a collection. And I look at all the pictures, and then I decide what's going to go with what, and then with what you find, because most of all my furniture, everything is either from the flea market or from eBay or, so it just kind of all goes together. So it all got put together like almost like an inspiration board.
Congratulations on that fireplace, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And over here? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lindsay.
Hi.
You both made reference to living currently in a much more subdued era for fashion and maybe for trends in general. Given that your design centers fun so extensively, how do you cope, maybe emotionally, maybe design-wise, with a fashion era and a social era that does feel so stoic and maybe dour?
But I think adversity brings out inspiration, and I think that people kind of overcompensate with their imaginations and create something new, something beautiful. I mean, I think that if you look at any time, like Art Deco came out of like the World War I period. So there's always strife and difficulty, and it also gives birth to something new. So you have to keep that in mind. It's the way humans are.
Busby Berkeley came out during the Depression.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have time for these 4 last questions, but I'm going to ask folks on each side for both of you to ask your questions together and give Anna and Matthew time to answer them, and then we'll take the last 2 ones over here.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Mehek, and this is kind of a related question, actually. I've been thinking a lot about fashion as like an economic indicator, if you will, and I was wondering how, if at all, like those economic moods like recessions or what have you influence like how you make decisions about your designs or your business and things like that.
And the second question? Yes, you. Yeah.
Hello, I'm deaf, and I'll be using sign language.
Okay.
We're asking her to get a little closer so we can see her. Hello. So I remember about 2005, actually, I went to your store, and I really, really loved it. It was on Green Street. And I do look back, and I remember seeing your fashion and the furniture and everything that you represent I really loved. And I actually really miss your store. So are you going to have another store in that area again? Or?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I loved that store. It was like my baby. I loved it. I don't know, because the economy changed, and Soho changed, and shopping changed. So I'm still trying to figure it out. But we have a great website now, and I hope it... I know, it's not the same.
Like
It's not the same. Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the previous question?
I forgot.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The previous
Yes.
question is about economic indicators
Well,
and recessions.
Again, when I started my business, there was a recession. 10 years later, there was another recession. So again, your creativity can't you can't use the excuse. You need to be creative. You need to express what it is that you want to do. Because this is your lifetime. So you need to grasp your lifetime. You can't wait for the right moment. It doesn't happen that way. You have to just keep going. And I think that's important. Don't use the economic situation as something that's holding you back. Figure out another way.
Sounds good. Thank you. And 2 questions on this side.
Hi, my name's Alexandra. I was so inspired by everything that you gathered as your own inspiration for all of the different lines and the shows, everything from movies. And I loved seeing one of the playlists for one of your shows. I was wondering if you had ever created an archive of your inspirations anywhere, so that if people wanted to go back and immerse themselves in your clothing lines or throughout that fashion history, they could maybe get into more of your mindset.
Thank you. I think if you look at the book, The World of Anna Sui, there's a lot of playlists, there's a lot of inspiration boards, there's a lot of pictures of collections, and then there's kind of a synopsis of each of the archetypes that the exhibition showed. And I think that that's a really, really good example of how my mind works. So.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Seneca. I have a related question. So I'm wondering, what inspirations do you find yourself returning to, and then how do you reinterpret them for new seasons?
Great question.
You have to keep all antennas open and your mind open, and you never know where it's going to come from. It could come from a film, a movie, a book, but sometimes you see somebody walking down the street, or sometimes you'll be at an event and you see it in the audience. So it's just being receptive and being curious, I think, is the best way to be, is always curious and wanting to learn something new. Even if it's not something that you think you're going to be interested in, have an open mind to it, and try to gain something from it, learn something from it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there been one image that you've had on multiple mood boards over the years?
There are repeats. Yeah, there definitely are repeats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Anna Sui.